There's a kind of interruption that can quietly shape your day. You've just sat down, got comfortable, and then that feeling appears again. Not urgent exactly, but persistent. A gentle pressure. A signal that says, you might need to go. And you think, didn't I just go? It can happen at home when you're trying to relax, or when you're out and suddenly you're aware of where the nearest toilet is. Not because anything feels wrong, but because the signal keeps returning. So what's actually going on when you feel like you need to urinate more often than expected? To understand it, it helps to picture the bladder not as a simple container, but as a responsive, intelligent reservoir. It fills gradually as your kidneys filter fluid from your blood, producing urine. As it fills, stretch receptors, tiny sensors in the bladder wall, begin to detect that change. They send signals through the nervous system to the brain, letting it know how full the bladder is becoming. But here's the key part. That signal doesn't mean you have to go. It's more like a notification. And normally, your brain decides when it's the right time. You can delay it, ignore it briefly, or respond when convenient. But when urination becomes more frequent, something in that communication loop has shifted. Sometimes, the bladder becomes more sensitive. This is often referred to as increased bladder sensitivity or overactivity, where those stretch receptors begin sending signals earlier than they need to. So instead of waiting until the bladder is comfortably full, the message is sent sooner and more often. It's not that the bladder is full, it's that it feels full. And that difference can be subtle, but important. Have you ever noticed that the urge can come and go, even without drinking much? Or that it feels stronger when you're thinking about it? That's because the bladder is closely connected to the nervous system. The same system that responds to stress, attention, and even anticipation. So when the nervous system is slightly more alert, the bladder can become more reactive. This doesn't mean something is wrong. It means the system is responding more quickly than usual. Another layer involves the pelvic floor. These are the muscles that sit at the base of your pelvis, supporting the bladder and helping control when urine is released. When these muscles are strong and coordinated, they act like a gentle support system, helping you hold and delay. But if they're weakened, overactive, or not coordinating well, the bladder may not feel as supported. So signals can feel more urgent, even when they don't need to be. Interestingly, it's not always about weakness. Sometimes those muscles are actually too tight, holding tension rather than relaxing and contracting smoothly. And that tension can change how the bladder senses fullness. Then there's something less often talked about, fascia. Fascia is a connective tissue that wraps around muscles, organs, and structures throughout your body. You can think of it like a continuous web linking different areas together. Over time, especially with less movement or repeated patterns, fascia can become more restricted or less elastic. Not damaged, but less adaptable. And because the bladder, pelvic floor, hips, and even lower back are all connected through this fascial network, tension in one area can influence another. So tightness in the hips, lower abdomen, or even the feet can subtly affect how the bladder feels and functions. It's all connected. This is where something that seems unrelated, like rolling a ball under your feet, actually begins to make sense. The soles of your feet are rich in nerve endings. When you gently roll a ball underneath, you're stimulating those nerves, sending signals through the nervous system. This can activate the parasympathetic state, the calm, resting side of your system. And when the body shifts into that state, the bladder tends to become less reactive. There are also reflex connections between the feet and the pelvic floor. They're not obvious, but they exist through shared nerve pathways and movement patterns. So stimulating the feet can subtly improve awareness and coordination in the muscles that support the bladder. At the same time, rolling the feet can release tension through what's called the posterior chain, a line of connective tissue running from the soles of your feet up through your legs and into your lower back. And because that chain connects into the pelvic area, releasing it can reduce pressure around the bladder. So something simple, almost indirect, can have an effect, not by forcing change, but by influencing the system as a whole. There's also a common misconception that frequent urination always means the bladder is physically filling too quickly. But often, it's more about signaling than volume. The bladder is doing its job. It's just communicating earlier than necessary. And once that pattern forms, the brain can begin to expect it. So the urge becomes more familiar and sometimes more frequent. That's why exercises can be so helpful. Not as a way to fix the bladder, but as a way to retrain the communication between muscles, nerves, and brain. Gentle pelvic floor exercises help restore balance, strengthening when needed, but also improving coordination. Because it's not just about holding, it's about timing. Quick contractions, sometimes called quick flicks, can help calm sudden urgency by sending a signal back to the bladder to relax. Slower holds build endurance, so the system feels more supported over time. And then there's breathing. Slow, steady breathing, especially with longer exhales, shifts the nervous system into that calmer state again. And when the body feels calm, the bladder tends to follow. Have you ever noticed how urgency can feel stronger when you're rushing or thinking about it, and then softer when you're distracted or relaxed? That's the nervous system at work. Posture plays a role too. When you're slouched, pressure increases in the abdominal area, which can press slightly on the bladder. Sitting or standing more upright changes that pressure, even if only subtly. These are small adjustments, but they add up because the bladder doesn't work in isolation. It's part of a wider system: muscles, nerves, connective tissue, fluid balance, all interacting continuously. And through all of this, there's an underlying purpose. Frequent urination isn't your body failing. It's your body trying to stay responsive, trying to keep you aware, to avoid discomfort, to maintain control. It's a protective signal, just one that may have become a little too sensitive over time. And sensitivity can be retrained, not by force, but by consistency. By giving the system new signals: calm, support, movement, rhythm. So when you notice that familiar feeling, that quiet interruption, it's not something random. It's part of a conversation happening inside your body. And the more you understand that conversation, the less frustrating it tends to feel. Because beneath it all, your body is still doing what it's designed to do: adjusting, communicating, and finding its way back to balance, one signal at a time. Here are 5 lesser-known, science-backed ways to help reduce frequent urination, focusing on how the bladder, muscles, and nervous system interact. 1. Quick pelvic floor pulses, quick flicks. Instead of long holds, do fast, gentle squeezes of the pelvic floor when urgency appears. This works through a reflex pathway. The contraction sends a signal to the bladder muscle, detrusor muscle, to relax, helping reduce that sudden need to go now feeling. 2. Time delay training, micro bladder retraining. Rather than large jumps, delay urination by just 5 minutes when you feel the urge. This gradually retrains the brain-bladder connection, reducing hypersensitivity in the stretch receptors so the bladder stops signaling too early. 3. Diaphragmatic breathing, deep belly breathing. Slow breathing with longer exhales reduces pressure in the abdomen and activates the parasympathetic nervous system. This calms bladder signaling and reduces urgency driven by nervous system sensitivity rather than actual fullness. 4. Rolling a ball under your feet, reflex plus fascia release. The soles of your feet are rich in nerve endings connected to the pelvic floor through shared neural pathways. Gentle rolling calms the nervous system, improves pelvic floor coordination, releases tension through the fascial chain connected to the pelvis. This can reduce that constant background urge feeling. 5. Hip and glute activation, indirect pelvic support. Exercises like slow glute squeezes or sit to stand strengthen surrounding muscles that support the pelvis. Better support equals less pressure on the bladder and improved control signals. Frequent urination is often less about how full your bladder is and more about how sensitive the signals have become. These methods work by calming, retraining, and supporting the system, not forcing it. I hope this has helped. Please like and subscribe for more videos. Take care.